In this lesson, we are going to look at the sine and cosine ratios. So in the last lesson, we looked at the tangent ratio. Now we're going to look at sine and cosine. The first suspension bridge in Vancouver was built in 1889 by George Mackay. He had built a cabin along the canyon wall and needed a bridge to conveniently access his cabin. Mathematical tools such as trigonometry can enable you to calculate distances that cannot be measured directly, such as the distance across a river canyon. So yesterday the tangent ratio was opposite over adjacent. Today we're going to learn the other two. And they are the sine of an angle is equal to its opposite side over the hypotenuse, and cos of an angle is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. The tangent, sine, and cosine are called primary trigonometric ratios. The word trigonometry comes from three Greek words, tri plus gonia plus metron, that together mean three-angle measure. Write each of the trigonometric ratios. So what we have here is first of all, in the first two examples, we're going from angle A. So we should label all of the sides of angle A. Let's get the hypotenuse out of the way. Hypotenuse is across from the right angle. From angle A, the side across from it is the opposite side. Side beside it is the adjacent side. So now we can fill in our ratios. Sine of an angle is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So we're looking for the sine of A. Its opposite side was 4. Its hypotenuse was 5. So there's your ratio for sine A. Cos of an angle is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So if we're looking for cos of angle A, the adjacent side would be 3. The hypotenuse would be 5. So you've written your ratio for cos A. Now we want to look from angle B. Once again, our hypotenuse is still across from the 90-degree angle. But this time, across from angle B is our opposite side, and beside angle B is our adjacent side. So if we want to find the sine of an angle, it's opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of B, our opposite to angle B is 3, and the hypotenuse is 5. Cos of an angle is adjacent side over hypotenuse. So the cos of angle B, adjacent to angle B was the side with measure 4, and the hypotenuse was the side with measure 5. So we have labeled those four trig ratios. The primary trig ratios and their inverses can be calculated using technology. Evaluate each ratio to 4 decimal places. So same as your keystrokes for tan. If you went tan and then the angle, you're going to go sine and then the angle. But if you did the angle and then tan, you will do the angle and then sine. So you are either going to go sine 42 equals, or you are going to go 42 sine. Either way, whichever way you do it, make sure your calculator is in degree mode. You should come up with, to 4 decimal places, 0.6691. Cos of 68 will either be cos 68 equals or 68 cos. Whichever way your calculator works, your answer to 4 decimal places should be 0.3746. If you're not getting those and you are pretty sure you are typing it in correctly, check your mode. Make sure you are in degree mode. Now think back to when we did tan of an angle equal to decimal value. You used your second function or your shift key. So you would be going second function sine 0.4771 equals, or you'll go 0.4771 second sine. Whichever of those you use, we want to go to the nearest degree, so that means the nearest whole number. you will get a value of 28 degrees. So the angle measure is 28 degrees. Same idea with cos. Either go second cos 0.7225 equals, or go 0.7225 second cos. And your answer will be 44 degrees. Your angle measure is 44. So it's important to remember your keystroke order so that we can solve the application questions. So what we have here is we've got the World Cup downhill that's held at Panorama Mountain Village in British Columbia. The skiers raced 3,514 meters down the mountain. If the vertical height of the course was 984 meters, determine the average angle of the ski course with the ground. Express our answer to the nearest tenth of a degree. Tenth means 1 decimal. So in a question like this, now that we've used all three tan, sine, and cos ratios, we are going to have to determine which we need to use to solve the question. So it really helps to start by labeling your diagram. So from the angle that we are dealing with, let's label. Let's get the hypotenuse out of the way. So here's our hypotenuse. From the angle we are looking for, across from it will be our opposite, and beside will be our adjacent. Now in this question, we need to look at what pieces of information we are given. We were given the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So we need to think about which of the trig ratios uses opposite and hypotenuse. And your answer is the sine ratio. Sine of an angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So that's how we determine which ratio we use. So now we can substitute in the values we know. The opposite side is 984. The hypotenuse, 3,514. We have a ratio that we can evaluate. We can do 984 divided by 3,514. And now we can find our angle measure. Remember, when you're looking for the angle measure, you are using second function sine. So we're using our second sine combination. And we will find our angle measure to the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal place, is going to be 16.3 degrees. So that is the angle for that diagram. So here's another one. A pilot starts his takeoff and climbs steadily at an angle of 12.2 degrees. Determine the horizontal distance the plane has traveled when it has climbed 504 kilometers or 5.4 kilometers along its flight path. Express your answer to the nearest tenth. So again, nearest tenth means 1 decimal. So what this question gives us an angle. It tells us how far along its flight path we are dealing with, and it tells us it wants us to find this horizontal distance. So what we need to do is we need to label our sides. Here's our hypotenuse. From the angle we're given, here's our adjacent, here's our opposite. The opposite side has really nothing to do with the question and what we're looking for, so we don't need to worry about it. So what we are worrying about is a ratio that has adjacent and hypotenuse. And if you think back to your trig ratios, that would be cos. Cos of an angle is equal to its adjacent side over its hypotenuse. This time, we know the angle measure. We know it's 12.2. We don't know the adjacent side, but we do know the hypotenuse. So what we do here, we can use our calculator to find cos of 12.2. So you just go cos 12.2 and go to 4 decimal places at least. You can go more, but go to at least 4 within the question. And now we have a linear equation to solve. So we multiply both sides by 5.4. We have 5.4 times 0.9774, which is 5.278 equals x. And it asked us to go to 1 decimal place, so 5.3. And we're dealing with kilometers. So the horizontal distance would have been 5.3 kilometers. So when you are doing questions now, you have to look at what you are given, what you are asked to find, label the sides according to the angle that you are referencing, and then determine which of the 3 trig ratios you would be able to use.